The SEC quarterback landscape is changing drastically this offseason. A few of the heavy hitters, actually, really all of the true heavy hitters from last season are gone to the NFL. Stetson Bennett from Georgia, Anthony Richardson, obviously top 5 pick, Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick from Alabama, and Will Levis. So a few of the big names in the SEC from the quarterback position out, which means there's going to be new faces. There are a lot of returning faces, people like Spencer Rattler, people like Jaden Daniels, people like KJ Jefferson. So there is some continuity, but whose situation is the best? Which quarterback room would you want in this league? And who was maybe the best starting quarterback? I actually think it's extremely hard to come to a consensus on this if you just look through. So let's get into it. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post here, talking about the quarterbacks in the SEC. Real quick, Double Dogs, Dogstruction, our insider books from the last 2 national championships are in the link down below. And if you get Double Dogs right now, you get the preview magazine for 2023 free. That's linked in the description down below. So there's easy ones to weed out, right? So let's sift through these quarterback situations in the league, right? Vanderbilt, I'm not gonna talk about that for more than a couple seconds here, but it could be a couple guys. AJ Swan's a returning player. You expect Vanderbilt to be the worst team in the league, and I believe Mike Wright was one of their quarterbacks last year. He was a very outspoken guy, but as far as production on the field, they went through a couple guys and didn't have a lot of success. I just expect that to be one of the worst situations. Missouri, Florida, is Auburn in there? For Missouri, look, Brady Cook, he's a guy that's been there for a minute, right? So it's definitely not the worst situation. He's not super talented. There is a fruit fly in here. Hope I got him. But I don't know. Do you trust Graham Mertz, the Washington transfer, or the Wisconsin transfer of Florida? Because I don't. I don't think that's a good situation. I'd put Florida in the bottom 2 or 3 in the conference. I'd be more comfortable having Brady Cook at Missouri than Graham Mertz at Florida. I don't know if that's crazy. For Auburn, Peyton Thorne is probably going to be the starter, right? The transfer from Michigan State. Is that a great situation? Obviously, experience with some of these transfers, a couple Big Ten transfers coming into the SEC, but do we really think these situations are that great? I'm trying to weed out some of these situations I don't think are that great. I'm not in love with Texas A&M's situation. None of those quarterbacks really played that well to me last year. I don't know what this team is. They're losing some talent in the portal, that number 1 class that they had last year. They're losing some of those guys, and it turned out a lot of them weren't as impact players as they thought. I think Texas A&M is in hot water, and I wouldn't want to be the quarterback in that situation. So I think that next tier, I would go, that next tier, you have to throw in Ole Miss. I think you throw in Kentucky. I think you throw in teams like, I've got lists and players all on my laptop, so I keep looking here. But I think that next tier, you get teams like Kentucky, Ole Miss, and then you gotta talk about it. Kentucky, another transfer, ACC, Devin Leary, right? He was solid at NC State. He wasn't fantastic. I think Kentucky's gonna get a little bit worse than they were the last 2 years. They've lost a lot of their good talent, and now a quarterback that gave them at least a little bit of consistency. So I think I'm out on that. And Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, I think that's where you start to get into the better situations, right? So let's talk about that. Ole Miss, I think that's a good situation. Jackson Dart, someone they've also got Spencer Sanders. They have dudes in there, and I think at least one of them is talented enough to grab them a few wins. So Ole Miss is good. But middle of the pack, I've got Alabama, all right? There's teams ahead of Alabama. I don't think Alabama's quarterback situation is good at all. I think it's mid-tier as far as the SEC goes, and I think that's one of the headliners of what I'm talking about here. I do think that Georgia's quarterback situation is better now. I think that there are a handful of teams in the SEC that have a better quarterback situation than Alabama. Georgia, LSU, Arkansas, Mississippi State probably, slightly. South Carolina, right? Let me make sure I'm not missing anything before we move on. Tennessee and Alabama, I put Tennessee and Alabama in that same situation. Joe Milton, obviously they have the 5-star whose name I cannot pronounce, but his first name is Nico. But Joe Milton is probably going to be the start of this season. He could get benched at any point. We know he has a cannon, but can he run that offense as well as Hendon Hooker did, and without the talent that Hendon Hooker had on the edge, right? So I think Tennessee and Alabama, I'm clumping them together. I think that they are together in this as far as kind of mid-tier. There's a few teams that have better situations. I'd put Will Rogers right there ahead of those two situations. A guy that has an opportunity to be the passing leader in SEC history, right? If he breaks Aaron Murray's record this year by getting 3,000 plus yards, he has an opportunity to do that. Consistency of the position, I like that ahead. And then you get Spencer Rattler and Jaden Daniels and KJ Jefferson and those guys. And then what's probably going to be Carson Beck, right? Where does Carson Beck land with those, or Georgia's starting quarterback in general? Because it could be Brock Vandagriff. We're looking at Carson Beck here, right? So the question is, would you rather have Carson Beck, KJ Jefferson, Jaden Daniels, Spencer Rattler? Just because I've seen Spencer Rattler be too up and down. I know he's a journeyman for college football. He's been around a long time. Obviously been with 2 programs, has played a lot of football. He's too up and down. And I just think I'd rather have someone who's been in the championship program for for 3 years, right? I'd rather have someone who's been in championship program for 3+ years, a guy that we know has a big arm, is accurate, makes decisions. I don't know if that's a hot take. So Jaden Daniels and KJ Jefferson, those are your two, guys that have had some experience in the SEC. KJ Jefferson, really physical talent, right? A lot of people thought that he'd have a much better year last year. Obviously dealt. Arkansas had a weird year, is kind of the way I would put it. They had a strange season. I don't think they were as good as some people quite thought they were going to be. I'm not a fan of a lot of these situations. There's just a lot of mediocrity in the conference, right? We're coming off of a season where there's a lot of NFL talent, and now there's mediocrity in the conference. I don't know how many of these guys are NFL guys, to be quite frank with you. Could Joe Milton, could KJ Jefferson, could Jaden Daniels, could all these guys vault their names into the NFL draft conversation? They could, but the SEC quarterback situation is bad right now, which is why I don't think it's crazy to say that I'd take Georgia's. I'm really playing the opposite of devil's advocate here, but I think Georgia's got the best situation because they have the best room of backups, probably. That's a little bit harder to debate. You got Robbie Ashford at Auburn. Does he keep his job over Peyton Thorne? I just don't like the Jalen Miller, Ty Simpson, Tyler Buckner situation that Alabama's got going on. I don't like a lot of these situations. I don't think they're great. So we're entering a year where there is going to be, I think it's a down year for quarterbacks in the SEC. And you're going to see that when it comes to the draft. You're going to see that when it comes to numbers. This will be an interesting year for the conference. And that's why Carson Beck, or whoever ends up being in the red and black, has an opportunity to be the best quarterback in the SEC. What do you think about that? Links are down below. Thanks for watching. Double Dogs. Grab it down below.